our kids come in 2 years behind grade level, but our scores are better than last year's. Look at this subgroup. They're doing really well. We probably need a little more time to dig into this. Your team sits down to look at the data, and for the next 45 minutes, something happens. Your team talks around the data without actually ever confronting it. And then the meeting ends and nothing changes. That's not a data problem. That's a conversation problem. Today, the 4 ways your team avoids its own data and the moves that break each one. Facing data honestly requires letting the numbers mean something, even when they're uncomfortable. Part 1, data review versus data interrogation. There's a distinction most PD on data analysis never makes: the difference between data review and data interrogation. Data review is what most teams do. Look at the numbers, note what went up and what went down, talk about what might explain the results, make a plan, usually some version of what we're already planning to do anyway. Data review looks productive. It fills the meeting time. But Keegan and Leahy's research on language and change shows that the way we talk about a problem often maintains it rather than solves it. Data review is how teams generate conversation about data without ever being confronted by it. Data interrogation is completely different. It's asking questions the data might force you to answer in ways you don't want to. Not what might explain this, but what does this make us responsible for? Not what are the blind spots, but what would have to be true about our instruction for this pattern to exist? The reason teams default to review instead of interrogation isn't laziness. It's that interrogation exposes a gap between what we believe we're doing and what the evidence shows us we're actually doing. That gap is the hardest thing for any professional to face. Part 2, the 4 defenses. Over years of working with teams and data conversations, I've identified 4 specific moves teams use, usually unconsciously, to avoid confronting data honestly. I call them the 4 defenses. Defense 1, the explanation. Something in the data implicates instruction, and immediately someone offers a reason. Well, these kids have a lot going on at home. We've lost 2 weeks of testing prep. Some explanations might very well be true. The problem is that the explanation ends inquiry. Once we've named a reason, we've closed the question, and then nothing changes. Defense 2, the comparison. We're above the district average. Our scores went up from last year. Comparisons redefine the standards so that current performance clears it. Once you've established you're above average, the urgency disappears. And defense 3, the bright spot shield. Look at this subgroup. They're doing really well. Noticing what's working matters, but the bright spot becomes a shield when it prevents the team from sitting with the low spot long enough to interrogate it. And then defense 4, the complexity deferral. This data is complicated and we need more context. We should just wait until we have a full year of data. This is the most sophisticated defense because it sounds thoughtful. It often has a grain of legitimacy, and it's almost always a way of not having the harder conversation today. When you can name these defenses in real time, calmly, without accusation, you change the whole dynamic of the data conversation. Part 3, 3 moves that change it. Move 1, interrogative questions instead of explanatory ones. Before your next data conversation, swap the standard questions. Instead of asking, what do you notice? That's classic. Ask, what does this data make us responsible for changing? Instead of asking, what might explain this? Ask, what would have to be true about our classrooms for the patterns to exist? The language shift is subtle. The effect is not. Interrogative questions don't let the team leave the data until they've confronted it. Move 2, the 5-minute silence. Put the data up. Before anyone speaks, ask the team to spend 5 minutes looking silently and writing 2 things: what they notice and what they're reluctant to say out loud. The second prompt is the one that does the real work, but only if you protect it. If you ask people to look at uncomfortable data and then say the hard thing out loud to the group with their name on it, you've asked them to perform the exact courage they don't have yet. So if they're ready to say it in the room, they wouldn't have been reluctant. So split the share. The first part, what they notice, people say out loud. But the second part, what they're reluctant to say, they write it on a card, no names, and they pass it in. You can read those to the team. Now the reluctant truths get into the room, which is really the whole point, without requiring anyone to be the first person to say the hard thing unprotected. And what happens in that 5 minutes of silence is that people encounter the data before the defenses form. The explanations and comparisons haven't organized themselves yet. The interrogation happens first, before social pressure shapes it. And this is the same principle that answers the question someone on your team is already asking. Should the data have teachers' names on it? The honest answer? It really depends on whether the agreement from video 4 exists yet or not. Put named data in front of a team without an agreement and you won't get interrogation. You'll get all 4 defenses working overtime. Because now the data isn't about instruction, it's about people. So treat anonymity as a scaffold, not as a destination, for data and for people's words. Start with data by class period or standard and the reluctant truths on anonymous cards. As the agreement gets real, the names come back and people just say the hard thing out loud. That's how you know it's working. The test of a healthy team isn't whether the data is anonymous, it's whether named data feels like information instead of indictment. And move 3, name the defenses when you see them. This requires trust, but once the team agreement from video 4 is in place, it becomes possible. When you hear a defense in real time, you can name it gently and specifically. I want to push on that a little bit. I notice we've offered 3 explanations for this pattern. I'm wondering if we're ready to move on or if there's something in the data we haven't fully confronted yet. You're not accusing anyone. You're inviting the team to stay in inquiry a little bit longer. This is Edgar Schein's humble inquiry, a question that you ask because you genuinely want to know the answer, not one that's secretly telling people what to do or what to think. Most questions in meetings are statements wearing a question mark. This isn't. Used consistently, the team starts to notice the defenses in themselves. In your next data conversation, replace one explanatory question with an interrogative one. Just one. What does this data make us responsible for? In place of, what might explain this? Then, don't rescue the silence. When an interrogative question lands, the room goes quiet. People are processing, so don't fill it. Just let it sit. The silence isn't a signal that the question has failed. It's a sign that it's working. Write down what surfaces after that question. Compare it to what would have come from the explanatory version. That difference is the gap between data review and data interrogation. You have the agreement that makes honesty possible. You have the moves that make data conversations actually productive. Before you go, if you want a free resource to start this work, the Data Interrogation Question Bank is linked in the description. It's the question set from today formatted to use in your next meeting. Hit subscribe so you don't miss video 6. Hey, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.